Hey everybody. So what I'm going to do for you tonight is I'm going to show you how to use your existing computer that you already have without installing any software and write your first computer program right now. So, uh, if you have a web browser, which you do because you're watching this, and if you're on a mobile device, this isn't going to work. You need to be at a real computer. So get over to a computer real quick and open up a web browser. It doesn't matter which web browser you open, although I'd recommend using Brave or Chrome or Safari. Um, but and it doesn't matter what type of computer you're on. If you're on Mac, if you're on Linux, if you're on Windows, it's all the same. And what we're going to do is, and you're going to write your very first program right now. So go to your browser, and depending on whether you are on, if you're on Mac, then you're gonna hit Command, Option, and then I. I stands for Inspector. So Command is by the spacebar. Let me show you real quick where these are. So let's see if we can get those in focus for you. Whoops, just one second. I mean, I think you know where it is, but oh, if we can't do this here, I'll just skip ahead. So Command and Option are those two keys right there, and then you know where I is. We're going to hit Command Shift I. I'm going to do it right here on the web browser window that I've got open. Let's see if I hit the wrong button. There we go. Um, it actually popped up in. I have two monitors open, so it popped up in the wrong one. Let me bring that on over. And you should have a place called console. So I think you can see right here this tab called console. Now if there's a bunch of junk here, you can click this little it looks like a cancel button. It'll clear it all out. And this right here is a programming console. So you can actually all web pages are applications, and you can live debug them and change things about them. So what we're going to do is something very simple. This is called the Hello World. This is the first program that anybody ever does. You're going to type out console.log open paren double quote hello world exclamation end quote end paren semicolon. Let me try to make this bigger. So let's see. Can you see that better? Yeah, I think you can now. Oh, and by the way, comments should be turned on, so feel free to ask me any questions. I'm just going to double check that in stream settings real quick. Yep. So you should be able to message me right now if you've got any questions as we're going along here. So again, we were doing Command Option I, or if you're on Windows, I think it's Control Shift I. Let me double check on that. If you're on Windows, it is, yeah, Control Shift I. That'll bring up this. You click on the console tab, you can clear it out, so there's nothing scary there because there might be some scary stuff there. It doesn't matter what web page you're on. You type in console.log hello world with some parens around it and some quotes around it, and then you hit enter. Okay, now, if you're very lucky, meaning that you followed the instructions correctly and you typed everything right, you're going to see hello world printed in the console. So, and then you're going to see undefined. So what happened was there is a console. This window is the console. So when you typed console, that was a reference to itself. And then the console has an ability called log. In other programming consoles, it will be called something like print or output or write or something like that. And then we call it. We say we call a function when we put some parentheses around it, and then we gave it. They call this an argument or an option. And the reason it's called argument is because it's related to the history of math and programming. There's arguments and math functions. But anyway, this is called a string. When we put something in double quotes, it's called a string. And we have our sentence inside. And when we hit enter, then the console is going to interpret that. And all browsers have a JavaScript console, all of them. So if you're doing this in Brave or in Safari or in Chrome or in not Internet, Microsoft Edge, any of those, they're all there. And you'll notice that there's no binary. And I mean, obviously, all of this is new. So there's like a million things that we could talk about here, but I'm just trying to keep it really simple. So what's important is that when we tell a computer what to do, we type at it, we give it either a function or a command to perform, and it has what we call syntax. So syntax is that the right things have to go in the right places. So for example, if I were to replace this double quotes on the end here with a single quote and I were to hit enter, uncaught syntax error, invalid or unexpected token. Now, the nice thing is that when you're programming, almost always you get an error message that has some sort of relevance to what you did wrong. So it's really important to kind of pay attention to what those messages are. And here, so you'll get this type of message all the time, especially with quotes, because, and I'll go into this later, but a lot of times, especially if you copy and paste from somewhere else, even if it's a blog, you'll get what are called smart quotes. And I can't replicate those for you right now, but they kind of look slanted or curly instead. And so if you ever see, actually, I will be able to replicate it right now. We're going to go to a new document in Google Drive real quick so I can show this, because this is actually quite important. If this would actually load here. Okay, so we're going to go to a new document. And if I type some stuff and then I put a quote, hello world. Okay, this is the most common error that you're going to get starting out. If I copy this hello world, okay, let me make that bigger so you can see there. Notice those quotes, whoops, have, they're curly. They're not straight up and down. They're not straight quotes, they're curly quotes. So if I go back to our console here and I paste this in instead, okay, notice that it's not highlighted anymore. And if I hit enter again, I get invalid syntax error. So that's one of the most common problems that you're going to come across. Characters that look similar but are completely different. Okay, so be on the lookout for that first and foremost. Now I'm gonna replace this again. So this is called syntax. It's that, you know, when I speak to you, if I mispronounce something or if I write a letter and I misspell something in an email to you, you're most likely going to understand what I meant. Computers don't understand what you meant. They understand only what you type and only if it's correct. So they do exactly what you say. And this is why there's so many bugs. Bugs in computers are not caused by computers being flaky. They're caused by people who write things that are ambiguous and the computer doesn't understand what it's supposed to do and it causes a bug. So anyway, here we are. If you did that, that is a program. It is a valid program. It doesn't do much. It's not very useful. We can do something a little more useful. So how about we do this? So that was console. That is this window right here. This window. Let me make it a little smaller so that I can move it around. But you can see I'm messing with a window. This is the console, okay? And then we've got our browser tab behind it, that this console belongs to this tab. So each tab in a browser has its own console. Now we're going to do something a little more useful, okay? We're going to do document. Oh, did you see that? See how it's highlighting the tab behind here when I type document? Okay, so I'm going to type document. That is that tab. The tab is called document, just like this thing is console. All right, and I'm going to do inner text equals, actually, I'll just do that. Hello world. All right, and I'm ending it with a semicolon. A semicolon is basically, in most languages, it's how you say this is the end of the line. The next thing is a completely new sequence. Okay, so I'm going to hit enter on this, and you can do the same. Whoops, sorry, I made a mistake. And unfortunately, this is the type of mistake where it doesn't even have an error. It just does what I told it to do, even though what I told it to do isn't what I meant. It's document.body. So document is basically the tab, and body is the text that we can see and interact with, and the buttons and that sort of stuff. All of that is part of the body of the tab. So document.body.innertext. And when people say object-oriented programming, okay, first of all, don't tell people you're learning object-oriented programming. That's like saying I'm learning spoken English language. Like, well, of course you're learning object-oriented programming. What other programming would you be learning? But at one point, programming was more rudimentary and there weren't objects, but all languages are object-oriented in some way, shape, or form these days. But what we have here is we have the document object, and then we have a dot, and then we are referencing the body object, which belongs to the document, and then we are referencing it's actually it actually is a function, but you use an equals with this one. It's kind of a weird thing. I shouldn't have even mentioned that it's a function, but anyway, you do dot inner text equals, and that says the text that is inside the body of that tab is going to get entirely replaced with hello world, as we see here. Now, cool thing that you can do, if I hit Command Z, oh no, it doesn't do it in that case. Okay. Sometimes when you're messing around here in the console, you can do Command Z and it will actually undo the last action that you did. That wasn't the case here, but that's fine. All right, so anyway, here we are. If you've done that, congratulations. You have written a program. You've done something. Now, of course, you'd want to save that program. You'd want to make it available so that other people could use it as well. But, for starters, if you wanted to get in programming, you just wrote your first program. So good job. Now you'll notice we didn't use any binary. Here's a myth that I wanted to dispel. There was a couple myths that I wanted to dispel. So we talked about object-oriented programming because everybody likes to throw around that word. Like all programming is object-oriented programming, except for very niche subsets that aren't. So that was one thing. And I kind of demonstrated what object-oriented programming means is simply that there are things that belong to each other in a similar way that objects belong to each other in the real world. A car is an object. A car has wheels. Wheels have tires and rims and bolts, etc. So all of these things have a relation to each other, and you can nest them. You can say, here's a car, and inside of the car is a wheel, and inside of the wheel is a tire and a rim, or part of, etc. And that's basically what we're doing here. We demonstrated we have a console, we have a tab, the console, the object name of the console is literally console, the object name of the tab is document, and we're able to edit them, okay? So that's what object-oriented programming essentially means. There's a lot of other stuff that goes to it, a lot of computer science we don't need to go into right now. But that's essentially what it is. Now, the second thing is people talk about binary, and you see this on TV shows and whatnot. There is such a thing as binary. If I were to say there isn't, then, I'd get tons of hate mail. Oh, and by the way, comments are turned on, so feel free to ask any questions. But there's no such thing as binary in the sense of, a programmer typing out 100011111000. This is complete nonsense. That's not what binary means. Okay, when people talk about binary, or the actual definition of binary is an addressing system. Like, for example, you have a telephone number, and back in ye olden times, the first three digits of the telephone number went to a routing station, and it would determine if you were staying local or if you were going outside to another city or state or whatever. And then the next three digits define whether, again, the locality, like whether it's close or far, and then the last four digits are actually the line that goes to your house. Or that's the way it was. Now it's all digital and the numbers get mixed up, but originally it was literally an addressing scheme. Or if you live in, or you've ever been to one of those cities where everything is addressed, 100, 200, 300, 400, 500 north, south, east, west, whatever. That's an addressing scheme. And this is what binary essentially is. Binary is just an addressing scheme for a circuit board. So on a circuit board, there's lots of different, we call them traces. So let me just bring up a picture of that real quick. So we'll do circuit board traces. Okay, if you've ever taken apart anything electronic, which I hope you have, you've seen things that look like this. So binary is simply means that if you count off the wires here, let's just zoom in on this one. So if I were to count off, I would start at 0. So this is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? Well, what we actually do is each of these is either on or off. either there's an electrical signal or there's not an electrical signal. So if there's an electrical signal, then it's a 1. If there's not an electrical signal, then there's a 0. So 1 1 1 1 1 0 0 0 0 0 1 1 1 0 0 0 just means that those lines are turned on or off. Now back to our handy dandy keyboard for a second. Okay, now keyboards have basically a maximum of 127 keys. Not anymore, but originally they did. And so when people talk about like, oh, this binary means like the letter A or the number 5, literally it's that underneath the keys there is a circuit board, and the circuit board has wires just like what you see here. And on the modern ones it's different, it's more complicated, everything's multiplexed, and a lot of stuff going on. But essentially when you pressed a key, that would let electricity flow through some of the lines and not through other of the lines. And when you hit the shift key, it was a particular fixed digit. So let's say there were 8 digits. So, I think it's I don't remember what it is, but let's say it's 0 0 0 0 0 is the normal prefix, because the first digit was actually always 0, and then depending on what key you press, it fills out the other digits. The shift key would actually turn on, I think it was the leading 1, so it'd go from 0 0 to be 0 1, and then whatever else, 0 0 1 1 0 whatever. And so the keyboard was actually just a mapping, an electronical address system, where if you hit the letter a certain number of wires would be connected and let a signal pass through, and then the other ones would not. And if you hit the shift key, then one additional wire, no matter which key you hit on the keyboard, would let that additional signal pass through. And so I just think that that's important to clear up out of the gate, just because it's something so common that people are familiar with kind of hearing, and I wanted you to know what it is. Anyway, so now you wrote your first program. You didn't do it in binary. Hopefully it wasn't that hard. And what we're going to do tomorrow is we're going to be talking about setting up your computer to do some other types of programming. Like basically there's a couple things you need to get a terminal set up. You need to have some programming tools installed, because while it is fun to be able to play around in the browser, and it's super easy for us to just go there quickly and be able to, take a look and type something out and enter it in and see the computer do something and get that sense of satisfaction of like, okay, well, that was a little bit cool. Like I hacked the web page. There's a lot of other stuff that we're going to need. And so tomorrow we're going to talk about getting the terminal and some of those tools set up. And we'll try to keep doing this day by day. Please send me any questions that you have. I really want to be able to answer your questions. And if you haven't already, check out the page, which is Beyond Code Bootcamp. There's going to be a link to that in the description or comments here. We also have a YouTube channel that is going to start getting some videos that you can subscribe to. This live format, there's some redoubling where I'm speaking because people are coming on and leaving, and so it's a little bit of a longer format. But as we go and we get the material more tuned, you're going to find nice, concise tutorials and information on the Beyond Code page, the Beyond Code website, the Beyond Code YouTube as well. So it's Beyond Code Bootcamp, and there'll be some links to that below. Please tell me, what are the questions that you have about getting started programming? I want to know. I want to help you advance your career and to be as successful as you can. So drop me a line, and I will catch you guys tomorrow.